And here we have the English Land Rover in its natural environment, forlornly parked up somebody's driveway with its bonnet open. Yep, sad but true. When I was a toddler and I first started noticing cars, I either wanted the fastest one or the one that could run over everything else and squash it. The Landrover was the weapon of choice. They were everywhere around where I lived. Everybody had a Landrover in the family. I'm not saying that was a good thing. I'm not saying it's because they were an awesome vehicle. I'm saying that because back then it was all there was that was sturdy and reliable. They were incredible, you know. At 4 years old, if you could draw 4 straight lines and 2 circles, you could draw a Landrover. You know, for something that leaks oil so readily, I'm surprised that they had such a rust problem. One of the best features on a Landrover was the chassis. One of the worst features on a Landrover is also the chassis. It's amazing how strong they were, but it's also surprising how easily they rusted. Down here behind the wheels, there were pockets in the rear outriggers that would collect mud, and these things would rust out like crazy. One of my favourite features of the Land Rover is the fact that you can put a padlock on the petrol cap. One of the other features is that if you drop anything down there by accident, you could put a small child down there to retrieve it. Lovely, isn't it? The original series Land Rover came out with a 2.25 litre petrol engine, the same engine that was fitted to the Rover 90, which was a family car of the same era. Later on, as the Series 2 and the Series 3 became available, diesel motors were introduced. And late on in the Series 3 and the Defender, which is the flat-fronted Land Rover, the Rover aluminium V8 was utilised. Many people in this country fitted larger engines, and quite an industry popped up around this. There were people fitting Japanese import diesels, and also this motor here. This is the Holden Commodore motor, the blue motor, one of the later models with electronic ignition. These motors had 109 horsepower and pushed the vehicle along at a sparkling pace. As you can see, this one's had extensive wiring modifications to cope with the transplant. That will all be tidied up in due course. Yep. You remember a series of videos that I did quite recently on my overland expedition trailer, the building of it and the features that went inside it? Well, this is going to be the same kind of thing. I'm going to get right into pulling this vehicle apart over the summer holidays. Over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be removing the body completely, getting it down to a bare chassis, and then I can clean and refresh everything as needed and know that I've got a good, sound, strong beast. The plan then is to carefully place the body back onto the chassis and retain this beautiful patina. I kinda quite like the fact that this looks old and crusty. The Land Rover is indeed a very special car. There aren't many vehicles that have used merely a shed door lock to close the doors. A vehicle with 4 gear sticks. A vehicle with all the modern instrumentation so that you can do any wiring repairs that might need doing while you're still driving. Comprehensive instructions on how to change gear. The vehicle has 3 different types of power takeoff. You can have fly leads for 12 volts, We've got the standard 12 volt cigarette lighter receptacle, and running down through the middle of the vehicle are a series of holes through all the cross members so that a third drive shaft can be fitted to drive agricultural implements. Yes, the Landrover really was the great British do-all vehicle. You could power anything that was 12 volt. If you had an army version, you had the big 240 volt generator, and with this power takeoff at the rear, you could even drive agricultural machinery such as pumps, saw benches and hay balers. Flexible straps ensure that the suspension doesn't fall off. The body is manufactured from aluminium, so there'll never be any rust problems in the panels. Heavy-duty galvanised steel bumpers, but only on the front. For some reason, Land Rovers were never fitted with a rear bumper. Long before millennials were even thought of, they designed a millennial anti-theft device, comprising of 4 separate gear sticks. The seat belts were originally lap belts, but later on pieces got added into the bodywork so that lap and diagonal belts could be fitted. No such thing as inertia reel in those days. Around the doors you'll see daylight even on newer Land Rovers. That's so the water that leaks in can also leak out. Bare aluminium. Not much in the way of soundproofing. The steering wheel's about the same diameter as they used on the Titanic, because the turning circle of a Land Rover is also about the same as that of the Titanic. The comprehensive climate control system consists of a vent on the passenger side to let warm air into the passenger's footwell, but none on the driver's side because that same opening is used for the brake pedal. Too hot on a sunny day? Not to worry. Just open the vent. The vent's not like on other cars. It's a large hole that opens up on the front of the vehicle, letting in rain, bugs, and dust. The Land Rover was introduced in 1948 by the Rover car company, who were desperate to earn some overseas income to build up the government's coffers after the expense of World War II. Who would have thought what a huge worldwide hit it would become? Can you lock a Land Rover? Yeah, of course you can lock a Land Rover. It has pins that poke into holes to stop the locks working. You just push them in and give them a twist, and the doors won't open. Same systems used on the heavily ventilated door windows. Once again, you operate a knob that pushes a bolt into the track to stop the window sliding open. Simple, but efficient. Still working beautifully after all these years. So what will you find under the bonnet of a Land Rover? For many, many years, Land Rovers were equipped with a 2.25 litre petrol engine fitted from the Rover P6 saloon car. But as Land Rover developed through the Series 1, Series 2 and Series 3, they fitted them with a diesel engine. But a lot of owners wanted more power, and as is the case with this particular one, the 120 horsepower 6-cylinder Holden Commodore was fitted to this one, along with extensive wiring modifications to make it all work. This particular model also has the Fairy Overdrive, which was a factory option. And one of the great things about the Fairy Overdrive and the Landrover gearbox is that should you ever suffer problems while you're out on a journey, you can simply lift up the seat and diagnose your gearbox problems. This unit here is the Fairy Overdrive, which is activated with this fourth lever here, putting the overdrive into and out of operation. Next to it, you'll see the card and shaft handbrake, which is a very efficient form of parking brake, but doesn't work on the wheels. It keeps the wheels a little simpler and brings it inboard, locking up the entire transmission when applied. How much fuel does a Landrover carry? Well, it all depends on your model. I always thought that the fuel was kept under the seat, but it turns out that it's only under the seat on one side. Here is the fuel tank on a standard short wheelbase Landrover. On long wheelbase Landrovers, they have another tank under the rear between the chassis rails, and the Army specification Landrovers have this tank under the seat, but they have it on both sides with a changeover switch. One of the quirky things about Landrovers was the mirrors. When a Landrover's idling, you can't see what's behind you in your wing mirror because it's vibrating so much. But Landrover came up with a synchronous system that somehow connects the outside door mirror with the interior windscreen mirror. When you're on the road, this one begins to vibrate uncontrollably and becomes unusable. So the two systems work in a synchronous fashion, depending on the engine speed. It's incredible that in those days they could have come up with such a system. If you think that you might be developing Landroveritis, my channel could be a good place for you to hang out for a little bit of therapy over the next couple of months as I strip this beast down to its underwear and give it the rebuild without actually making it look any better. Because of course, shiny new Landrovers, that's just pretentious.